hopeful for is there some way that we can find some kind of agreement to look at this a little bit more fully.
White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows pushing a Georgia elections official about more fully looking at ways to overturn the results that showed Trump's loss in that infamous call. It's part of the evidence that just got Meadows indicted in this Georgia RICO case. The call with Trump is part of why the Atlanta DA says Meadows tried to get a public officer to violate their oath. That's what he's charged with. And that brings us, as I mentioned, to another court hearing today stemming from Trump's failed coup. Now, this takes time, but the loser of the 2020 race has sparked now many criminal cases and legal headaches for himself and others. That's the way it's going to be for the foreseeable future based on the way these cases are going. Now, there were many people who said Mr. Meadows was unlikely to take the stand at trial or pretrial hearings. But as we've actually told you before on this very program, we don't do predictions, and many predictions are worthless. So here you go. Mark Meadows taking the stand for the first time in open court, testifying for nearly 5 hours today. These are the available sketches. The federal courts don't allow cameras. This is striking, though, for a Trump aide who was so committed to avoiding testifying about some of the same events before the January 6th committee that he actually risked formal contempt and possible indictment simply over defying that probe. So what changed? I bet you know. Mr. Meadows was indicted. He was booked. He got his mug shot and clearly sees that he could face prison through state court. And that's regardless of what happens to his old boss, Donald Trump, or any others. His team also apparently thinks he has better odds for this case in federal court. So today he took the stand specifically to offer testimony for why everything he's accused of was, he argues, within the scope of his federal job, that he was invited to every meeting the president had, that he was doing his job within the broader federal priority of free and fair elections. We should mention then Georgia Secretary of State also testified late today and was shown some clips from that same phone call mentioned with Trump. Now the judge will decide whether Meadows' federal argument justifies a trial in federal court. Here's how the New York Times explained it in a report on this new hearing today. Removing a case to federal court requires persuading a judge that the actions under scrutiny were carried out by federal officers as part of their official business. Now, this question doesn't resolve a defendant's guilt or innocence, and defendants have every right to make these kind of requests about what is a fair venue for their trial based on their specific situation. In Mr. Meadows' case, his work history. Nobody doubts that he had a very important federal job. A federal trial would also broaden the potential jury in ways that these defendants see favorably and provide a trial without cameras in court. For example, we have here the cameras, you may recall, from when those charges, which include Mr. Meadows as a defendant, were first handed up in mid-August. Now, under American federalism, which is a particular system, it's one most democracies don't use, this federal trial is just a setting. Think of it as a location. The actual underlying criminal charges, no matter what, are still under Georgia law and thus are not pardonable by any current or future U.S. president.